Okay, so before we get to the real interesting part of the notes of Hyperforms, let's firstly look just over the path of Hyperforms itself, and it has a few difficult activations, I would say, actually. So this song is not only hard to see, it's kind of hard to do with the optimal path too. So let's dive straight in. And the very first phrase can be a bit annoying. It's only 2 notes, so you might ask, how could that possibly be hard? Well, obviously the trills in this section can be hard to transition into, and these two chords here are both strums, and it's not really viable to one-hand this stuff. So yeah, this phrase is kind of missable. Luckily it's pretty much the main missable phrase in the song, but you do not want to miss it because the first act is worth a fair amount of points. You can get star power if you miss it. You have enough to activate, but you will miss out on a lot. And considering it is only 2 notes, you should probably hit it. But anyway, immediately following that we have a whammy phrase. These phrases are fine. And then the first activation. Now, originally, I went for this yellow note act, but then I changed it to be this green note act, so I did it a little bit later. And the reason for that is that this generated path assumes that you get perfect whammy, and I never would, because A, I'm on an explorer, and B, I'm just not very good at whamming anyway. And activate on this green is not only activating on a measure, so it's a bit easier, even though it is during triplet strumming. It's a bit easier, and also it gives you a better chance of hitting this 3-note chord at the end. I rarely did, and in fact I don't know if I ever did, but it's worth doing it just in case you get like the godlike one. So yeah, that's the first activation. Already pretty tricky, activating and strumming. But yeah, the second activation is the worst one. So we get a couple of phrases, again, all really short, all pretty simple phrases. But this one, obviously it's the first note of these trills that you're going to tap. So, like I do during tapping, I opted for a tilt act. Now this is an immediate tilt act following this, and it's a bit annoying because you already have star power, and it's very easy to screw up the activation and activate a bit too early or something like that, especially considering it's a double yellow, and it sort of threw me off, at least. I don't know why, but it did throw me off having this double yellow, and obviously neither of them are strums. But yeah, the activation is to activate as soon as the trills come up, and if you're a bit late it doesn't matter too much because you see the activation ends here, so all that'll happen, it'll end a bit later, so there's no deficit as long as you act in this first trill, or pretty much there's not much deficit. So yeah, another very valuable act. And the third act is once again really valuable, but luckily it's pretty easy compared to the first two. So we get 2 phrases, and it's obviously right here, and the easy way to remember this is it's literally when these blue-oranges chords come up, so there's no blue-oranges until the activation. And this overlap is kind of tight, but I never actually missed it, so I think if you activate on this note you'll be fine. There's no whammy at all, and yeah, you can see your star power will run out if you activate on this note like straight away. Your star power will run out on the chord, or just before the chord, so it's sort of extremely unlikely that you won't overlap. It'll always look close, but you will overlap. And yeah, you get so many chords here that it's necessary to get this overlap, really. But that activation, all things considered, isn't as bad as the others. It is activating on alt strumming again, but it's not in the middle of alt strumming at least. Okay, and then the final act is an easy one. You get some whammy, you hit another 2 easy phrases, and then you activate at the first instance of a triplet or red yellow chord, and you get another overlap. This overlap isn't hard to get, but I did forget about it sometimes, and I'd miss whammy here, so it's probably worth keeping in mind that there is whammy, there is an overlap with this last phrase. But yeah, the last activation is the easiest one, so the activations probably go down in difficulty, kind of. I would say the second act is harder than the first one, but the path is pretty tricky. Obviously we've got tilt act during pretty complex tapping, or at least relatively fast tapping, and activating while strumming, as I've mentioned a few times already. And this first phrase is pretty difficult. But yeah, that is the path for Hyperforms. It's not easy at all. But alas, the more interesting part of this song isn't, of course, the notes. So we'll get into that now. Okay, so now let's take a look at the notes of Hyperforms. Now, a lot of this, the majority of this is tapping based. I think every single section I'm going to look at just involves tapping and elbow strumming. So yeah, I'm not going to go over the triplet strumming because that's it's pretty self-explanatory, and you know, there really isn't anything else fretting wise besides the tapping part. So we'll just go straight into it, and we'll go obviously with the very start of the song, which is this thing. So I'll just take a look at element type first. So the real problem with this is the chords. If the chords didn't exist, it wouldn't be a problem because you could just tap all the way through it. And of course, them being strums, you have a choice of the methods you can do. You also have the choice of one-handing the entire thing, but I don't think that's really a viable method for most people. So the method I opted to do, and the one I'm way more consistent at, is a double elbow strum. So it's just basic. You know what it is. You just strum twice with the elbow. If you're not fast with the elbow, then it's not going to be an option, but this is just what I did. And I've always been pretty quick with my elbow strumming anyway, so yeah, it just seemed pretty obvious to me that this is the way to go. And as far as actually tapping the notes, it's just pure standard tapping. So hit the lower note and anchor it first, and then it's just non-stop, it's just straight tapping all the way through. So I'll just play it. Okay, so there honestly isn't too much to explain there. It's fast, and there's a few points where you stop tapping just for one note, and then one of those points is here. You see there's an ascending quad up there, but that's just a result of the two trills that you're playing. So you wouldn't tap the second yellow in that case. You just tap one and then do the quad up. And I also believe I stay in first position for the entire thing. So there's no sliding at all, and therefore no risk of missing the chords on a slide back down. And also the very, very end, so the last note going into the sustain, instead of doing a double red tap and then hitting the yellow, I would just do a single red and then do a triplet up, so yeah, like that. And I'll play it one more so you can see it all. Again. Okay, and so of course the other method you can do is teleporting, but I can't do that at all. Like, I can't even do a good demonstration of that. I don't even know how you would do that, honestly. Yeah, it's just I look like an amateur, and like people like Gravel can do that sort of thing. I cannot. So the only option for me was doing the double elbow strum. So yeah, that's the intro. I don't know anyone else. If anyone else that opted for a double elbow strum there, but obviously I did. But anyway, that's that. The next part we have to talk about is verse 2 in its entirety. So this is more trills. Everything in the song is a trill that's a note. So we got quick triplet trills, but they're kind of unconventional. There's a lot of like same notes in a row. So there's a lot of times in here where there's two yellows in a row, but you can sort of just ignore that. And once again, I just do the entire thing elbow strummed when there are strums, and there aren't strums too often, so it's not as much of a problem as it is in the intro. So I'll just play through it here. don't know how to start. Okay, so there's a few things that are a bit unconventional here. The first thing that's a bit, well, maybe a little bit strange is that I do these initial trills in the first position rather than the second position. And the reason for that is just makes the transition out easier, and I don't have to do a slide, and it's not particularly fast to do it with your ring finger rather than your middle finger. So yeah. And the tapping pattern itself is literally just tap all the yellows. There's nothing special going on there. Of course, if you're lazy, you could just do this, and that would probably be 100% consistent. But it makes the transition out harder as well. So yeah. This part I just standard tap, then stay in first position. Right, and the transition into the trill there, I one hand the triplet up and then start doing the normal method. So I don't do a double tap, not in this one at least anyway. And you're already anchoring red when you get to the trills. Right, I'm just going to set the position here. Okay, so then we have the next transition and a slightly different pattern that changes frets reverse to red. So going into it, I do a double tap for some reason. I don't know. It just stuck with me doing a double tap there. And ideally, you see, there I did like a subtle shift from first position to second position. It's a sort of thing you can just develop as time goes on, but yeah, it's better to be in second position in a second instance of the trills, because it goes up to blue yellows, and it goes back down as well, but you do not want to be doing these trills with your pinky. It's just a little bit faster. It's a little bit faster for me at the very least. So yeah, switch up to second position as soon as you can, and yeah, we'll just do that again. I'm messing up here, just because I'm thinking of exactly what I'm doing here. So this part is normal, as we've done in the past. Then we're shifting up, well we're not shifting up, but we're doing this one in the second position, so it's as we were doing the red yellows in the first instance of it. But then when we shift down, it's a position shift again, and I just keep anchoring green. And then when it comes to these bits at the top, instead of doing like anchoring blue, what I do, and this is while anchoring green mind you, so it's sort of 1.75 position or something like that. So it's this. We're using fingers 1, 2, 3 on green, blue and orange, and literally, so it's while anchoring green, and I press tap orange and do the grace note with the left hand. So I can actually press it on the menu here, the top two. So this is while anchoring green, and then that goes back into our yellow blue trills, which are the same as they were before. Oh, there should be anyway. For some reason I'm trying to do it a different way right now. Okay, so one more time for good measure. Double tap, shift to second. First. Back in a second. Okay. So those trills are kind of annoying. The worst part about it is the second time it happens with all these fret shifts. Can be missable, and actually the transitions into them with the double yellow. Doing a double tap can be a bit weird, as well as focusing enough to make sure, I don't know, that you. It's just a bit weird. I don't know how to explain it really, but anyway, that's verse 2, and the next section is actually bridge that we're going to look at, and this one's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so this is immediately following the trills we just did. so you'll already be tapping at that point, so I just stay tapping, and obviously standard tap through the whole thing. And we can stay in second position for all of the trills, because there's no green notes in them at all. Now it is very viable to alt tap these trills. But I choose not to. Generally, with stuff that's at this speed, it's slow enough to standard tap, and I just feel like I have more control when I'm standard tapping. With alt tapping, it can be a bit weird, so a lot of anchor shifts and that sort of thing. And if you stay anchored in red, then you have some awkward blue-orange alt things at the top, which I just find a bit awkward. So yeah, literally just stick with second position. And it's pretty simple, it's obvious where you need to tap. And in that case, it's literally just changing the anchor. Okay, and that's they're the 3 trill sections, and they are the only sections that are really of note in this song. Now you could argue these triple strums, I mean, are there, but they aren't really. Even if you don't like burst strumming, you can just strum through them straight and it's not even a problem. The only other thing that could be missable is the triplet strumming in the beginning, but as I say, it's just triplet strumming and there isn't anything to comment on. So yeah, I'll leave it there and we'll go to a run of the song right now. Okay, so that was Hyperforms. You got 586.5k. That's a pretty decent score. That's about what I would want from a run like that, using that path. Pretty sure Gravel and people like at least Gravel, who is I think the best of this song, was getting 589k on his best run. So this is pretty decent for a tournament path anyway. So yeah, that's Hyperforms. The next song and the last song of Pool 1 is gonna be, if I click Clone Hero, it's gonna be Copernican Heresy. So I will see you in that one.